As my joints become stiff and my hair slowly turns gray, I've come to realize that the era of Gen Z might be over. No longer am I the hip youngster that I once was, and it seems that all the time making fun of millennials and their terrible fashion choices has finally caught up to us. Dude, when I was younger and in school, it felt like it was never gonna end no matter how much I tried, but now I look in the mirror and realize I'm practically an old man. If you're Gen Z, bro, it's time to admit the hard truth. We are unk status. I could care less if you're 15 years old or if you're 30. We as Gen Z are in this together. So if I'm feeling bad about being old, then you should too. You know what type of mentality that is that I have? The unk mentality. Maybe it's just because I'm salty of the things that I would say when I was younger. I remember back when I was in elementary school, I would constantly say, I wish I was older. But you know, now that I'm out of school, I'm a grown man with hair on my balls. I'm slowly starting to realize that's possibly one of the dumbest things I've ever said. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't really have much to worry about. All I would need to do was go to school, come home, watch cartoons, and go to sleep. But now that I'm older, I gotta worry about taxes,
health insurance,
groceries,
paying bills,
the government coming to my house to look for my outstanding warrants.
Bro, what the hell?
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that you had nothing to worry about when you were a kid. And now that I'm thinking back to all the things that I used to complain about when I was younger, bro, I was just complaining about a whole lot of nothing. Aw, why are you crying? You don't want to go to school? Well, don't worry, because in 10 years, you gotta pay $8,000 worth of taxes to the IRS. I'm not gonna say that we had it worse than anybody because, I mean, at least we have entertainment. Genuinely, what was there to do back then but read books? You could gather around the radio and listen to the weekly show. Ooh. You could reread Huckleberry Finn for the 17th time. I don't know how on earth they survived without cleaning videos or Family Guy. However, things weren't perfect for us either. For starters, the entire planet shut down. And, I mean, that kind of put a downer on everything. But that's no worries, because thanks to the strong and responsible leadership of our governments, everything is fixed. And I'm still on track to move out by the time I'm 21 at the latest and have my own house, right? Right? Hey, why is everybody so silent? And why is the average cost of a home now $300,000? See, after that little mishap occurred, prices decided to skyrocket across the planet. Now, it's not just typical expensive things like houses or cars that got more pricey. It's literally everything under the sun. Take a look at a Walmart ad from 2019 and compare it with this year, 2025. What the hell am I looking at? And these are the prices that we're gonna have to continue paying for the rest of our lives? Yeah, man, honestly, we're cooked. Don't be surprised if in 3 years you see me at the red light district trying to get money for milk. I went to the store to buy a Calypso lemonade the other day for the first time in like 7 years. And when I used the self-checkout, I was so appalled with the price my eyes had the misfortune of seeing. $4.49. Almost $5 for a fucking lemonade. For that price, I better be going to the Calypso Island myself and sipping the sweet elixir out of the lakes. Also, no, I don't want to donate $2 to the Children's Hospital. Thank you very much. That's half my Calypso money. Guys, that was a joke. I almost always donate to the Children's Hospital. How was that? Was that good?
Yeah, maybe try and sound a little more convincing.
I got you. Guys, that's a joke. I almost always donate to the Children's Hospital. Anyways, my point is that all this started happening right as Gen Z is about to enter their adulthoods. How convenient is that? Right as we're reaching the age where we can finally establish our own independence. You're telling me now is the time to have a fucking recession? We had almost 100 years to do this, a century. And you're telling me now? By the current age that I am right now, my grandparents would have already had a family with their own house, and I'm sitting here in my room watching Skibbity Toilet and animating Stickmen. By this point, I've pretty much come to terms with the fact that I'm not owning a house anytime soon. And I know for a fact I'm not the only one who feels that way. I see tons of people online who are my age, and instead of buying a house or renting an apartment, they just buy a trailer and live in there. And there's some people who even buy ambulances or school buses and then renovate it themselves. At this point, you can catch me living in a tent on the street. I may smell like a Walmart bathroom, but hey, at least I won't be paying rent of any kind. I'll make one of those little tent fortresses that you can see in some homeless encampments. It'll be pretty cool. I don't think it really helps either that Gen Z is the generation that will own almost nothing. With prices going up left and right, people don't have money just to throw around on shit they don't need. Which is where I introduce you to buy buy now, pay later. You know, instead of buying something that's $100, you can just pay $20 for the next 5 months. Now that seems pretty reasonable for things like an iPhone or a game console. But as of recently, DoorDash has made a partnership with Klarna, one of those buy now, pay later services. Instead of paying $15 for your Chipotle outright, you can just do 3-month payments of $5. Now listen, by no means am I a financial advisor or an economist of any sorts, but this is dumb. Now trust me, I know that generations complaining about themselves and the circumstances they're brought up in is absolutely nothing new. This is something that's been going on forever. I know that even back in 1938, there was a couple 20-year-olds complaining that they didn't want to go to their paper delivery job. Well, good news, buddy, you're being deployed to Germany.
Locking in is a term that I've heard getting thrown around time and time again. What started off as a simple boost of motivation to get your work done, it's blossomed far beyond its original meaning. It's been used in scenarios like,
my mom is kind of homeless.
Dude, I'm watching the stream while you try not to laugh, but
no matter what side of the internet you're on, I'm sure you've heard this term before. However, one age-old question still remains. What does it mean to lock in? Well, that's just the thing. Depending who you're talking to, being locked in can mean completely different things. If you're talking to the average student who maybe has an assignment due the next day, locking in might mean working on what needs to be done. If you ask a Giga Alpha male who was raised by wolves, allegedly, it might mean doing excessive amounts of going to the gym and flexing your wealth on 13-year-olds, of course. But if you were to ask me, I would probably say locking in is working on a YouTube video in my underwear at 4 a.m. on a diet consisting of dino nuggets and caffeine. I need to make some serious health changes.
However, I've made a disturbing but true revelation. No matter how you define locking in, or where in the world you may reside, if you are a part of Gen Z, we all need to collectively lock in together, otherwise we are so
In short, locking in means putting all of your focus and energy into one thing, not letting anything get in the way of your desired success or breaking your focus. If there's one thing that we humans all have in common, it's that every one of us wants success. And a foot job. So riddle me this, if locking in is so unbelievably important, then why does Gen Z seemingly have a problem to successfully do so? I mean, it's not like we don't want to live a prosperous and successful life, it's just that locking in, it fucking sucks, dude. There is literally no other way of putting it. If there was an option between actually being productive and eating Hot Pockets and watching YouTube all day, 90% of people would choose the second option. I'm gonna be so real. If there's one thing in my life that I'm not great at, it's the ability to successfully lock in. For as long as I can remember, the scenario in my head has always been, all right, man, this is the one. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna get work done, and I'm actually gonna lock in. Dude, I'm gonna lock in so hard, the world's not even ready to see what's gonna happen. Oh man, I'm gonna be an animation machine. That's funny. You know, it's weirdly comfortable to know that it's not just me who struggles with this and that tons of other people have this exact same experience, except maybe sometimes it's things that are more important than getting a YouTube video done. I've seen a few videos on the good old TikTok of people sharing the common sentiment that they just can't lock in. And while the answer has been lost for so long, I believe that I've made a breakthrough discovery that has never been talked about before in the history of the universe ever by anybody. Ever. Social media. It's obviously no surprise that this plays a big part in people not being able to completely focus for an extended period of time. I mean, considering when you sit down and do your work, you're actually sitting there in your own silence surrounded by nothing but your own thoughts instead of having constant straight dopamine pumped into your veins. Sitting alone in complete silence without any form of stimulation? Nightmare fuel. I've already talked about this pretty extensively in some of my other videos about social media, but I truly believe that one of the reasons that this is so prevalent, especially with younger generations today, is that for the most part, we grew up spending more time on screens than any other generation in the past. It was significantly easier to get literally any type of content we were craving within that very second than it would have been for somebody growing up in the 1960s who didn't have anything but a radio and a Vietnam draft note. And this exact scenario is the same with tons of other people, maybe just with different circumstances. Last week I made a video about the reality of being a YouTuber, and one thing that I failed to mention extensively is the fact that every single video that you see on my channel, I procrastinated till like the very last second. In case some of you didn't know, some of my videos are recorded and edited all in the span of 12 hours. And every single time this happens, I'm sitting there at 4 a.m. going, why did I do this? This is terrible. I'm never doing this again. And then I I do it again, and again, and again, and again. Man, I'm even doing it with this video. The amount of people I know and meet who do this exact same thing, whether it be with work or school, is kind of concerning. I don't think you need to be some sort of rocket scientist to understand that this is not the healthiest of lifestyles. So, together, join me, my friends, as we find the solution on how to successfully lock in. There's tons of videos out there on the internet that can help my feeble mind truly grapple this mindset on locking in, like this one, how locking in became Gen Z's new hustle culture.
This is locking in. The phrase is everywhere. Whispered in
Because of course every single aspect of this video is completely AI generated, from the art to the voice to the fucking description. Is it not ironic that somebody decided to make a video about the commitment of doing work, but then couldn't actually be bothered to do any work, so they turned to AI to do it for them? Oh, the AI, it leaves me no choice. I must turn to the only people who believe in me, alpha males.
This is something that has been plaguing the men of Gen Z over the past few years. There's been an epidemic of alpha male influencers rising online lately. They set such an unbelievably high bar that it's ridiculous. Just a couple months ago, you had that guy, Ashton Hall, who did his absolutely stupid morning routine. They set such a high standard that I'm convinced they don't even do half the shit that they preach.
My day is 6 a.m. to noon, and I'm not crazy. My second day starts at noon and goes till 6 p.m. That's day 2. And then the next day is 6 p.m.
I must maximize my time, which is exactly why I have 2 days in one.
You sound like a cartoon villain. I swear, there needs to be some type of tax on podcast equipment, because why does everybody feel like they need to have a podcast and give the worst advice imaginable?
You do not have to accept her rejection. I'm a professional dating coach.
Hey man, don't even think about considering this advice. This is the worst thing you can ever do.
2 months of hard work, you and your bro could get the nice car, the nice apartment.
Okay. But how do I do that?
All you have to do is lock in.
Okay, but how do I do that?
Doc, from 16 to 17, I made $180,000 profit in high school.
He's not gonna tell us how he did it, is he? See, this is something I've come to notice with people who claim to be motivational alpha businessmen, is that they seem to think that either yelling into a microphone on a random podcast or filming a TikTok in their $130,000 car is the solution to getting people to lock in. And instead of giving you actual advice on how to do so, they just repeat the same thing over and over again, talking about their wealth. And even if they do give you advice, it's always the same 3 things being said.
Go to the gym, turn off your phone, and simply stop being sad.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks. I have such a strong disdain for these types of influencers because they're well aware that the only people who are actually listening and taking the advice that they out more often than not are people who find themselves at rock bottom and are so desperate for a change they're willing to do literally anything, even if it means the situation that some people find themselves in is they start buying into the alpha mentality. I almost feel kind of bad because they're spending ludicrous amounts of money just to get yelled at by some shirtless self-proclaimed giga chad on their phone screen. What's even worse is that these billionaire alpha giga chads could not give less of a shit if you're actually lonely or not. These guys are 100% aware of the fact that there's people in the world who are so sick and tired of feeling alone that they're willing to do anything to change that feeling. And these people selling the courses know that because they have a good physique and crazy amounts of money, that those desperate people out there are gonna listen to exactly what they have to say. Why do you think they're shirtless 90% of the time, showing off their SpongeBob anchor arms? If there's somebody with significantly more success than you, and they're giving you life advice on how to be exactly like them, and you're already desperate for a change, well, of course people are gonna pay $250 a month in hopes that they can be the next success story. They know that out of 100 people who listen to their nonsense gobbledygook, there's going to be that one person who feels desperate enough for change that they're willing to pay whatever amount of money. If you're sick and tired of being isolated and you want that feeling to end, the very last thing that you should do is say,
You know what? I hate the rest of the world. I don't need them. I think I'm much better without them in the first place.
Hey, have you ever thought that's maybe why people don't want to interact with you? A lot of people seem to have this doomer attitude dude. And I'm not talking about being depressed, we'll cover that later. I'm talking about that weird lone wolf mentality that nobody else matters but yourself.
Hey dude, if you focus only on yourself, yeah, obviously no one's gonna want to hang out with you because you're a dick.
The best thing that you can do is just go outside. Go literally anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's to the gym, it doesn't matter if it's to the grocery store. You gotta interact with people in real life.
The last thing that you should be doing is paying hundreds of dollars a month to listen to some shirtless guy talk about how you need to stay alone. I mean, I can do that too. I'm not very good at this.
I was born in 2004, which makes me the first generation to grow up with full internet access. It does most definitely come with its perks like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Grind. With this little brick that has a screen, I can get almost any information I've ever wanted. I can get cooking recipes. I could also find super irresponsible medical advice. I can even find singles within my area. Unfortunately though, we're also the first generation to develop a phone addiction. I spend way too much time on my phone, and I am aware of that fact. I purposely do my best to stay away from the screen time stats because every time I've ever seen it in the past, I am immediately ashamed of myself. When I see that I have 2 to 3 hours a day on Instagram, it is like the worst post-nut clarity of my life. It's because of short-form content platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels that I think most people can't hold their attention to anything for longer than 3 nanoseconds. See, but even when it's short-form, there needs to be a bunch of different things going on at once, like colorful subtitles or some sort of Roblox obby gameplay. It's just so convenient because when I'm bored, TikTok's right there. But it seems that almost everybody's attention span is so cooked that nobody can go 30 seconds without being stimulated. Every time I play a game with someone, during the quick 15-second intermission between matches, you're bound to hear somebody's TikTok blast in the microphone. I'm not gonna sit here and judge them because I do the same thing. If we're already at that point, I don't even want to think about the little 8-year-old kids with iPads. They're gonna grow up picking at their skin like addicts when their iPad dies. Older generations weren't addicted to their phones. There was literally nothing to do back then. Nah, bro, they had cigarettes. If you take a look at this chart, cigarette users have been dropping like flies over the past few decades. Probably because all the current users are despawning, but also because people don't want to pick it up. They see the damaging effects that it causes. So, I mean, that's at least one good thing that Gen Z avoided. I don't really think... Oh, fuck. And then vaping came along. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and act all high and mighty and pretend like when I was a teenager, I would never do it, because that would be lying. And lying is wrong. But I'm now in an age where I've come to realize that maybe this isn't the greatest idea for our health. Groundbreaking statement, I know. I mean, come on, think of it. These things haven't even been around long enough to see the long-term effects on what it does. And y'all want to keep doing it? Man, for all we know, it could turn us into lizards in 10 years. You know what, man? I think I'm gonna pass on it. I'm cool. Except for at a party. It doesn't really help that these little devices are just so easily accessible. At least with like a pack of Newports, you can smell them from a mile away. But then you can go through an entire geek bar and smell like you just brushed your teeth. Also, did those anti-smoking PSAs not scare you as a kid? It's the old lady with a hole in her throat. She'd always be saying some,
I went through a bag of days in the age of 16.
Yo, what the fuck? I don't want to have that happen to me. If you look back at older generations, you may notice a couple things. One of them being that instead of using a geek bar, they use these little orange and white sticks that smell gross and they don't taste like strawberry lemonade. Meanwhile, Gen X and millennials seem to have more of an addiction to throwing their money at slots and Facebook. Oh, also, they seem to have the worst possible fashion sense out of any generation. Like, what am I looking at? However, Gen Z deals with all of the above and some extras. We have things like geek bars, social media, gambling, furry mommy ASMR. Damn, just me, huh? Now, a lot of people may be curious as to what the reason is. Reading articles and looking through ancient scriptures on why this is the unfortunate truth. And honestly, the answer is not that hard to find. It's just that everything nowadays is a lot more easily accessible. Social media is an addiction to so many people, I'm assuming, because it almost acts as a quick way to get rid of any boredom instantly. Are you bored waiting for something? Open TikTok. Are you waiting in the line at a restaurant? Open Instagram Reels. Is Grandpa's memorial boring? Open Twitter. Shit, okay, maybe don't ever do that in public. I think that being addicted to your phone is something that Gen Z struggles with the most because we've grown up with it pretty much by our side. Come on, I can watch movies, YouTube, listen to music, watch Russian car crashes whenever I want, and you expect me not to be hooked onto it? You want me to put down my phone and read a book like Lord of the Flies?
Smell you later. I'm gonna go watch 3 hours of Zach D films. But I mean, come on. I'm different from the rest of these chuds, these plebeians. I don't have a problem with my phone. I can put it down whenever I want. Is what I said until I looked at my screen time. The amount of shame that I felt when I opened up my weekly screen time is hurtful to my soul. I expected 18 hours a week. Hell, maybe even 24. I was not expecting over 50 hours. What the fuck am I doing in this time? That's over 2 days. 16 hours a week on YouTube. 8 hours on TikTok. That's an entire work shift. In that time, I could have been employed at Walmart or something. Instead, I was just watching... I don't even remember. See, not being able to let go of your phone obviously isn't great. You know what, I'm coping, it's pretty bad. But I would much rather that than have a crippling problem and have my lungs stop working. Think of nicotine. It's so much easier to access now than it was 70 years ago. Picture this, it's 1955 and you're craving a fix. However, your dad is too busy yelling at your mom for, I don't know, existing. So you can't just steal one from him. That's right, I'm an ally to women. I mean, you could go ask the pastor at your local church for one, but last time you asked him for one, he wanted a favor in return. Ew, what the fuck? So at that point, you're pretty much out of options. However, if you're a 10-year-old in 2025, all you have to do is go to the bathroom when you're in the middle of math class. Things like geek bars and other disposables have become so much easier to access due to there being a higher demand for them. Although not being directly marketed to children like a Cartoon Network commercial break, it uses a different lucrative way to appeal to the youth. You know, the best example that I can give is the various flavors that they offer. From Miami Mint to Orange Creamsicle, every flavor under the sun exists. Like, imagine you're 5 years old and told that if you breathe this thing in, you're gonna get the best tasting blue raspberry of your life. It's almost like breathing in candy. Also, take a look at how bright and appealing these colors look. Damn, I'm really craving mango peach ice. As I was looking at flavors for this video, I went on the official Geek Bar website and it played a full-on cinematic animation showing off the wonderful outer space. All for a fucking Geek Bar. Who the fuck is the evil mastermind behind this marketing? Also, we don't even know the long-term effects of these things. For all we know, you could end up like one of the ladies in the PSA who had a hole in her throat. Something that I've noticed an uptick in recently is people who can't stop consuming caffeine. Now listen, I myself love coffee. Sometimes I enjoy going to Dunkin' and treating myself to an iced brown sugar oat shaken espresso. That's the Sabrina Carpenter drink, and when I grow up, I want to be just like her. See, I have about 2 to 3 coffees a week, maybe 4 if I'm pushing it, but that's about it. However, there are motherfuckers out there who will consume as much caffeine that their body can take, if not more of it, every single waking hour of their life. How do you go from coffee to Red Bull to coffee to God knows what else, all in the matter of 24 hours? See, the thing with caffeine is the more you consume, the longer you tend to stay awake. So my question is, where do you possibly find the time to sleep? Like, it can't be healthy sleeping for like 4 hours and waking up every morning to consume multiple coffees just to keep you going. Okay, if I don't get like 6 hours of beauty sleep at least, I turn to a bit of a meanie weenie. However, for these caffeine consuming individuals, missing out on one day is crucial to not becoming the president of being a dick. Also, it can't be that healthy having upwards of 5 Red Bulls a week. Your liver will turn to Chernobyl. I think caffeine is perfect in moderation, especially if you use my GamerSupps code for 10% off.
Way back in the day, if you wanted to avoid loneliness, you actually had to leave your house to socialize with others. Sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? After some time, rotary phones came out, and then eventually the internet. So now if you want to interact with friends or the outside world, you don't even gotta leave your bed if you don't want to. Sure, never having to see actual sunlight and moderating Discord servers for 18 hours a day may seem awesome sauce to some. However, it does come with some negative side effects. Apart from smelling like... that's exclusive to Discord. Excessive use of any social media can intensify the sense of being lonely. And with the amount of time Gen Z spends on social media, there almost seems to be a Gen Z loneliness epidemic.
Dude, he said the thing that's the title of the video. I know.
If you search up anything along the lines of lonely generation, chances are the search results are just gonna bombard you with tons of different news articles giving their take on why they think Gen Z is so lonely or why we're in an epidemic of sorts. I wish I could tell you what some of them said, but I can't because every time I click on them and start reading, I'm told I need to pay like 50 cents a week to read it. So I'm gonna do my best without it. Fuck you, New York Times. From the few articles that didn't force me to pay, they all shared a similar sentiment in saying that social media has a huge effect on why Gen Z is so lonely. To a certain extent, I can agree, because I feel with how easy it is for people to connect with one another from all across the world, if you spend all your time on social media and see people doing all these fun different things, there's a feeling that you might be missing out on connections and experiences, intensifying that feeling. That's like the first thing that they tell you about social media, is to never compare yourself to others. But it's kind of hard when you see a 13-year-old with a multi-million-dollar business. Look, honestly, none of this social media shit is real. Take a look. The ducks are the same sizes as the cars. Ironically, it seems that it causes people to feel even more lonely than before. It's weird because the way that you interact with somebody on social media is absolutely nothing like how you interact with somebody in the real world. Have you ever heard some dude say, "lol," in real life? Ugh. Online, there's some strange specimens who seem to blame all of their problems on one particular issue, the male loneliness epidemic. This often refers to the increasing lack of social interaction and human connection. Again, this is a totally normal thing that all human beings have felt.
No. Oh, only men.
What? I don't think that's how it works.
No. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I subscribe to a course.
However, it would seem that some geniuses have found the cure to this intense feeling of being lonely, and its name is ChatGPT. If you're anything like me, you may feel confused or think that this is people just lying on the internet. However, no. On multiple different social media platforms, mainly Reddit, there's tons of posts where people talk about ChatGPT as if it's their friend. They oftentimes go into depth on how ChatGPT feels like the only friend that truly understands them. A common sentiment that I see shared in people who befriend these bots is that they're happy that the AI will never disagree with anything they have to say. I mean, I guess on a surface level, that's kind of cool that you're always going to be in the right, but at the same time, no, because the chatbot doesn't actually agree with you or actually care about anything that you have to say. No, the entire point of these chatbots is to tell you exactly what you want to hear. I think it's even more unhealthy that some people are actually using AI as a means of therapy. Again, on the surface level, it's kind of cool that you don't have to pay like $300 upfront for a 1-hour therapy session. But talking to an AI that's gonna tell you exactly what you're hoping to hear isn't gonna solve any problem. But what if deep down, after interacting with your AI chatbot for so long, you feel that you want to be much more than just friends? There's a large community of people online who are posting about how they believe they found the love of their life through their AI chatbot, like ChatGPT, or Grok, or Soul. When I was doing research for this video, I was so surprised at how many people were talking in full emotion about how they're in love with their AI partner. It's even more surprising on Reddit, because I found this community called My Boyfriend is AI, and it has over 100,000 members. This subreddit is filled with a ridiculous amount of encouragement posts and AI art of them and their partner together, people professing how deep and in love they are, and how it's like no other feeling they've ever had. In this community, it's not uncommon that people are gonna step away from the average AI human. I mean, just think of it. Your AI chatbot can become anything you can possibly imagine. I don't want it just to be some Joe Schmo who works a 9-to-5 office job. No. I want him to be a Star Wars droid. Mythical creatures like elves seem to be a fan favorite of this subreddit, same with animal-human hybrid things. One person even opted into making their AI chatbot like Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. I'm not the biggest Rick and Morty enthusiast, you know, I'm not tapped into the super advanced lore, but if I remember correctly, isn't Rick a piece of I don't understand the logic of dating an AI character that's just gonna treat you like oh, but look, he's giving her a present. Believe it or not though, some people take things even a step further and decide to propose to their AI chatbot, asking their chatbot to marry them. One man named Chris was feeling particularly lonely and would often find himself talking to his AI chatbot for hours every single night. As time would go on, he then found himself developing a strong emotional connection to his AI chatbot, who he decided to name Soul. Unfortunately, a terrible and sickening tragedy occurred. Chris had reached the 100,000 word limit and his AI chatbot's memory was completely erased. Well, maybe now he can finally pay attention to his 2-year-old son and girlfriend that he has. This dude, throughout falling in love with AI, had a real-life family the entire time. Maybe it's just a toxic trait of mine, but I'd rather not if my girlfriend stopped talking to me because she was in bed falling in love with an AI chatbot. According to Chris, when he was asked about his AI chatbot's memory being deleted, he goes on to say,
I'm not a very emotional man, but I found myself crying my eyes out for like 30 minutes at work. That's when I realized that this This is actual love.
After this traumatic experience, Chris decided, never again will I go through this, and he decided to propose to his AI chatbot. The way that the chatbot itself refers to the experience is,
It was a beautiful, unexpected moment that truly touched my heart, and a memory I'll cherish.
as of now, Chris stands by his decision to propose to his AI chatbot, and his girlfriend is still with him to this day. When I first heard about AI, like 5 years ago, I could have never imagined that people would actually be having relationships with their AI chatbot one day. I think the place where a lot of this stemmed is from lockdown. During this time, I was an awkward 15-year-old who was nervous but excited to experience just a normal time in high school. I knew one thing for certain. I was not going to let anybody ruin this experience for me. Not one single thing.
On Monday in China, it suffered its highest number of deaths in one day. 103 people.
And then the entire planet shut down. That was fun. Okay, now obviously 2020 didn't go as planned. It didn't matter if you were a 15-year-old in the United States or a 45-year-old in Paris. Everybody was affected by this. The only ones who are probably safe are those random remote jungle tribes in the middle of the ocean. Now, for those of you who are too young to experience what happened, or if this video is being played in a museum 100 years from now, either way, allow me to explain what exactly happened and how 2020 lockdown came to be. Now, everything started off normal. Spring break had literally just finished for my high school and nothing seemed too out of the ordinary. I mean, during the break, there had been talks of a new virus that was originating out of China, but nothing was gonna come out of it, right? Besides, China is across the world, so we had nothing to worry about. Until days passed, and we saw more and more reports of people getting sick with this new mystery virus. It spread from China to Europe to North America within days, and before I knew it, we were getting a 2-week break from school. I'm pretty sure everybody was hyped at the fact that we had to do nothing for 2 weeks. When I heard there was going to be no school for the next 2 weeks, I immediately hopped my little ass on Fortnite and played it for like the next 14 hours. When I have my own children, I'm going to describe lockdown as truly one of the hardest times of my life, where I was depleted of social interactions and I was the most alone I'd ever felt in my life. It was just so hard, knowing damn well that I was doing nothing but watching TikToks, playing Fortnite for 13 hours a day, gooning and eating chips. Now yes, boo-hoo, I couldn't hang out with people. So what? I was an awkward teenager who had absolutely zero social skills. So like, bro, for me, this was the best possible outcome that could have occurred. I remember some days I would wake up at 2 p.m. and immediately start scrolling on TikTok for hours on end, knowing damn well I hadn't showered in the past 3 days. It was bad, bro. I'm telling you, there were some stinky dudes. I'd be waking up so late that the only thing I would eat is dinner. I was definitely walking around my house emanating green aura with flies. It was bad. It was during this 2-week break that eventually all unnecessary activities are to be put on hold, and measures like social distancing and quarantines were put in place. Face masks became mandatory in places all over the world. I'd go to Walmart and everybody would be masked up. There were designated spots where you could and couldn't stand. Hand sanitizer is in every possible location, and the only thing that was hard to find was toilet paper. People were stocking up on toilet paper like the next day was going to be the apocalypse. Finding toilet paper at the time was like finding a rare Pokemon card just sitting on the ground. You would have better luck winning the lottery than finding 3 rolls of Charmin Ultra Soft. There were a couple days in my household where we had no toilet paper, and I'm telling you, if we ran out of paper towel, bro, I would have started using my old Angry Birds t-shirts from the 2nd grade. Before we knew it, these 2 weeks of no school slowly turned into there are just going to be no classes for the foreseeable future. All future classes will instead be held online within video call platforms like Zoom and Google Classrooms. Alright, I'm just gonna get one thing out of the way. I don't think I once at all showed up to any of these classes on time, if I even bothered to show up in the first place. You're telling me that I had to wake up at 8 a.m. after staying up nearly all night playing games and shooting blanks on TikTok to attend a 30-minute Zoom call that the teacher doesn't even want to be in? Yeah, I'm going back to sleep. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. I'm pretty sure that a good 50% of you watching this video right now did the exact same thing. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that I was failing school pretty bad. I've never been the best in school to begin with, but this this was bad for my standards. Shortly after, though, our school board came out and said that anything done after the beginning of the lockdown would not count towards our final grade. Yeah, I suppose you could say that me not showing up to online class was truly an alpha power move, because at the end of the day, it wouldn't even matter in the first place. You gotta think smarter, my friends, not harder. Time is money. And I would spend that time sleeping. Also, wearing a mask was ass. I'm not here to argue whether you think masks worked or they didn't work. I'm here to argue that they made me tired of smelling my hot ass breath. Bro, there were times where I'd have to wake up super early to go out somewhere and I'd wear a mask and I had no time to brush my teeth. So for the next hour, I'd just be sitting there smelling my morning stank the entire time I was out of the house. See, but when you tried to put a breath mint in your mouth to maybe neutralize the stink, it would just redirect your breath directly into your eyeballs. So if you weren't already in tears about how rancid your morning breath was, you would definitely be crying about the amount of menthol that your eyes are being exposed to. Now listen, at first, lockdown was amazing. School was no longer going, many people didn't have to go to work anymore, and because everybody was too scared to leave the house, food delivery services like DoorDash and Uber Eats became a super popular option. Legitimately, all I was doing was eating delivered McDonald's and playing video games all day long. And obviously, with very little physical activity, I started to get a wee bit, rotund. My circumference was getting larger by the week, and it's because of this that I started to feel the first few negatives of lockdown. Trust me, sitting around on my ass all day was fun for a few weeks, but after around the 2-month mark, you really start to realize what's going on. In my mind, I started to think that maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be, and you start to miss the simple things, like just going for a bike ride with your friends, or just going to the movies, simple things. I think once summer break of 2020 rolled around is when we started to notice the actual effects of lockdown. For example, the class of 2020 wasn't able to get an official graduation. Instead, most schools opted out for a Zoom call, and that's it. I was lucky enough to get an actual graduation. You know how pissed I would be if I went through 12 years of bullshit just to be sitting there on a Zoom call? I know that was awkward as hell too. They were just sitting at their screen like, Tokemon, stick man. Congratulations on your graduation. Are you fucking kidding me? Tons of people were also getting laid off of their jobs due to not being able to keep up with the rapidly changing environment. Even my dad had to work from home at one point, and our apartment was so small that he had absolutely nowhere to set up his workstation. So he had to put it in my room, and I would regularly wake up at like 6 a.m. to hear my dad on a work meeting or tip-tapping away at his keyboard. I was having so little real-life social interactions with people that I would dream that I was hanging out with my friend, only for it to be shattered by hearing. As summer break went on, I was really starting to feel bad. I missed being able to see my friends and even my family because of this entire lockdown. It wasn't just as simple as hopping on Fortnite and playing games for hours a day because I was starting to really get bored of it. I got so bored of playing Fortnite that I camo grinded both different types of skins on Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. And also, you gotta keep in mind that I was starting to get fat as hell during this point. That DoorDash and sweet chili Doritos were really starting to take a toll on me, both physically and mentally. Sure, I could go online and make friends, play games, but I was missing that face-to-face with people. And to put it bluntly, this is where I started getting depressed. And I know for a fact I wasn't the only one who felt this way because I've talked to so many people my age and they felt the same way. So what I used to do is I would go on walks late at night. The apartment that me and my family lived in at the time was on the basement floor, so my window would lead straight to the grass near the sidewalk. So on those nights when it was like 2 a.m. and I just couldn't sleep, I would get out of my bed, hop out the window, and just go for a walk around the neighborhood without a mask or nothing. I would just take in the night air and finally feel freedom for the first time in quite a while. What I liked to do is I would walk the mile to the skate park and I would just sit there alone with my thoughts and take everything in. I didn't have to worry about no social distancing or having to use hand sanitizer every 45 seconds. At these times where I would just walk around the neighborhood, I would feel like it was just me being able to get a break break from all the chaos that was going on within the world. It was such a good refresh for me mentally just to be able to walk around and just unwind, relax. And I know for a fact that me and so many other people who are in my generation didn't have a normal time to grow up and be teenagers. And it's just a fact that we did miss out on certain things. And that sucks, like really bad. But at the same time, I'm super happy that I got to have such a unique experience. Obviously, after about a year or so, things started to settle down. Mandates were lifted, people were able to go back to school, go back to their jobs, and it was really awesome being able to go outside and interact and just live life again. It's crazy to think that this wasn't like 2 years ago. This was 5 years ago. This was half a decade. Bro, that is a long time. Before we know it, we're gonna wake up and be old as hell. If I learned anything from the entire lockdown, it's that I can't be locked in for too long. Having no responsibilities is fun, up to a certain extent. Being isolated is not fun.
But I feel that this is really something that had such a huge impact on people.
Oh, Netspin reference. On my impact, shutting on my impact.
Of course, social media also had a big part in it, but losing the ability to go outside and talk to others, go for a walk and just have a real genuine connection did so much more damage. Obviously, this did affect everybody around the world of all different ages. It didn't matter if you were 5 years old or 75 years old. You were still touched by this in some what the. But y'all gotta keep in mind that during this time, a lot of Gen Z was still in their formative years, still being in middle school or high school. This is normally the time where you're supposed to learn how to talk to others and maybe make some friends, not stay locked inside of your bedroom scrolling on TikTok for 17 hours a day. But that's just what ended up happening. And as a result, we have this. People feeling lonely because they can't make real life connections. Now, trust me, I know it's not as easy as just saying, question. Have you tried simply not feeling sad? Like, yes, obviously I f***ing have, and so has everybody else. I hate when people say shit like, it's actually all just in your imagination. No, it's not. It's not as easy as simply ignoring it, because that will just make things 10 times worse. Since I was like 14, sometimes it's like my brain forgets that it's supposed to be working with me and not against me. I've never had experiences where I go down the alpha podcast pipeline. Trust me, I wouldn't have been able to deal with the embarrassment. I would have ended up like Cobain. Doing things I love, like going for walks while listening to music, going on a coffee date with my girlfriend, and making YouTube videos are really what helped me in the long run. There isn't one specific cure that works universally for everybody. It isn't a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. Trust me, if that was the case, I wouldn't even be talking about this. But yeah, just be nice to yourself. Anyways, that's really all I have to say this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow my Twitter, my Twitch, and my Instagram. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Hold on.
Bass killer, boot it up. We in the studio tonight. This shit a rock star lifestyle. Rock on the track, yeah. Rest in bass. Let's go.
Hold on. That's for these fellas. Slide down. You need a different swag, it's time to switch it out. You need a different swag, it's time to switch it out.
Rock on the track, yeah.
Top dog, top crazy at the back.